So I'm Jerry and I'm here with Mark and Barry. Hi guys.
Hi Jerry. Hi Mark.
Hi Jerry. Hi Barry. Hello everyone.
Hi everyone.
Can I give a wee shout to the wife and kids who are watching as well?
No shame.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so since April this year we've been podcasting Celtic A-Z, just going through all the great players, great figures, great games, iconic moments of our magical and unbroken history. Today we're going to focus on our very proud record in the Scottish Cup. We're already the most successful club in the competition's history. And
by some distance.
Yeah, by a decent margin, yeah. And tomorrow we're going for our 40th triumph. So in our episode we normally each nominate a player or a game, an artefact or wild card or something, make a case for it to go into our A to Z. Today we're doing it slightly differently. We're each going to propose a couple of nominations, but also take you through all our Scottish Cup triumphs as well, and hopefully reach a consensus on what's the greatest Celtic Scottish Cup moment.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so
which is going to be very much argued.
I know. Well, we'll see. We'll kind of open that up to you as well. Let us know if we get that right or horribly wrong. So I've explained that properly, boys. Is that kind of...
Yeah, it's a good overview, Jerry, what we do.
Good, okay, cool. Let's make a start then. So we'll kick off with a nomination before we start taking you through some of the history. So Barry, I think, come to you first.
I'm going to do the first nomination. So my first nomination is the most recent one that we're going to speak about in today's podcast, and it's from 2017. I mean, I'm starting with the big gun here. I'm starting with the pivotal moment in the last few years, the game that capped off the invincible treble.
Yeah.
But before I talk about that, let's go back a year. So this put us in a bit of context. We had a horrible afternoon at Hampden Park. We lost in penalties to Rangers. The missed penalty was from the big Australian Tom Rogic.
Yep.
And I mean, it was heartbreaking, it was gutting. I just felt, where are we going from here at this point? And then in that summer, Brendan Rodgers comes in and the club just it's just renewed almost. It was such a great feeling in the club.
There's a big change, isn't there? Yeah.
It's kind of Mark Realistic, isn't it?
It's... We've talked, I guess, throughout the series about defining moments in the club's history, and that's obviously one of the most recent ones, I guess.
And then, as I said, not to go on too much about it, but then we go forward a year and we've got the same player, Tom Rogic, scoring the winning goal, and a team which has just been completely rejuvenated even.
Yep.
And it's a memory that will just live with me for as long as I live. And I remember I could see it in my mind's eye, Tom Rogic with that ball run through in the last minute.
Yeah.
Sticking it at the back of the net.
You think he's too wide? He's too wide.
I think I was shouting, square it, in my limited knowledge.
And the thing as well about that cup final as well, Aberdeen were clearly the second best team in the country at that point. They had a good team. You're talking Johnny Hayes, Kenny McLean, Niall McGinn. They were a proper solid team.
Yep.
Don't get wrong, Celtic were phenomenal that year, miles better than everybody else. But it was a proper occasion, and I remember being there thinking, this is great. We've got the two best teams in the country competing for the final.
Well, the thing is, Aberdeen, they hadn't really laid a glove on us, albeit, you're right, they were second, but I think we'd beat them 4 times in the league. We beat them in the League Cup. But you're right, that was... You felt that was their moment. Obviously, they went 1-0 up as well.
And they had that glorious moment about an hour into the game where they could have taken the lead. But then, the last 30 minutes is just wave after wave after wave of Celtic attack. And Celtic probably could have ended up winning that game 5 or 6-1 if Scott Sinclair had shooting boots on that day. But yeah, for me, the reason I'm nominating is just it was so emotional. I remember I was pretty much in tears at the final whistle. I'm getting emotional now just even thinking about it. It was so happy just compared to where we'd been the year before, and where the future at that point just looked so bright. And I love it so much.
That's a great nomination. I think it's that moment when you realise you're living through Celtic history, isn't it?
Well, an undefeated treble, the invincible treble, it's highly unlikely we're going to see that again. So you're right, it's a pretty special one. And that moment with Tommy Rogic, right, the legend of lightning striking the park.
I mean, it was a strange day because you had the weather, which was like sunshine, and then it was a storm basically, and then you had the lightning coming in after we scored. And then you've got the bit with Kieran Tierney going off as well, and then come back on to grab the trophy.
Yep.
It's just fairy tale stuff.
Doped up to the eyeballs, running up the stairs at Hampden. Aye. Yeah, no, it was a great moment, and I guess that was the first of this great run of.
In fact,
hopefully
we can sort it out tomorrow and complete that quadruple.
Excellent. Okay, so 2017 then, and that Tommy Rogic goal, that's the first nomination. I'm going to take you through, I guess, the early years of the club now and start our initial successes in the Scottish Cup, so leading up to the First World War. The first final we were in was actually the 88-89 season, so the season of our formation. We ended up getting beat with Third Lanark in the final, but reaching it's not a bad start.
So let it. First year the club existed, it was too much.
But 3 years later, we have our first trophy. 1892 Scottish Cup, we beat Queen's Park 5-1. And one of the early greats of the club, Sandy McMahon, gets a hat-trick that day.
Oh, did he?
Well, there seems to be some debate.
My Bible, my Celtic 95-96 pocket annual suggests it was 2 goals from Sandy McMahon and an own goal.
I don't think there's any footage of it, so we'll make your own mind up on it.
The Jubilees panel still make a decision on it.
Give him the benefit out. Give him his hat-trick, surely.
But what a player Sandy McMahon, though.
Yeah, you're right, one of the kind of early superstars of Celtic. The game was actually replayed, so we actually beat them 1-0 in the first final, and it was ordered to be replayed because of crowd encroachment, and then we beat them 5-1, so fair enough. It's a bit odd that you play a game, get a result, and then say play it again. I guess that happened. A few years later, so 1899, the first Old Firm final, we won 2-0 against Rangers, so not a bad way to end the century, I suppose. And then retain it the following year, 4-3 v Queen's Park.
7-goal thriller.
Yeah, it's a cracker. And I think we've said before on our series, I think in those early years, the Scottish Cup's probably the main event rather than the league.
Yeah, the league's still in its infancy, isn't it? Really, just getting going.
And I think that, there's amateur teams like Queen's Park. We talked about Celtic becoming professional in the mid 1890s and that kind of early boardroom wrangle and that. But Queen's Park, Vale leaving teams like this, the amateur teams are still very much a force in the Scottish Cup, not so much in the league.
I mean, the Scottish Cup is your ambition at the start of the season at that time, and that's what you want to win. Certainly up until probably the turn of the century.
Yep. Lost a couple of finals in the early years of the 20th century, 01-02. Yeah. Then another Old Firm final, 1904, against Rangers, beat them 3-2. It's a Jimmy Quinn hat-trick. I think that was a real hat-trick.
I've got no complaints about that one. I've spoken to the people and it's a genuine hat-trick.
Good stuff.
For Jimmy Quinn, do you know what I mean?
A hat-trick in a final against Rangers, that's brilliant.
It's a team, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
The Croy Express, is that not right, from our nicknames episode?
We did had a wee bit of
few nicknames, but I think the Croy Express is one of
them. Yep, so a couple of back-to-back wins, 07-08, 3-0 against Hearts, 5-1 again v St Mirren. And then a very interesting year, 1909. Don't know if you are aware of what happened.
Was there a slight disturbance at some point?
I think that's what you could maybe call it. Yeah. So there was 2 games. I think it was 2 each first game, and then 1 each, and then there was a riot.
This is against Rangers.
Against Rangers, and the cup was withheld. So 1909 officially there's no winner.
I mean, I've read before that it was the fans rather than a riot between the supporters. It was more a riot against the SFA and the clubs themselves. Because if supporters believed that they were fixing the result, so we could just have a final and another final and another final just to make more money. Which is not impossible.
I suppose, yeah. Well,
particularly in those early days, I'm sure there was a few shenanigans going on at certain places.
I think that's where the term Old Firm started to come out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was the media, wasn't that period, the suggestion that they were running the same.
Yeah. Okay, so 1909. Who knows who was to blame or what exactly went on there?
It's probably their fault.
I think it's from England.
But then
history has proven it's probably their fault.
Well, let's leave that there, Barry. A great era for the club, though. That kind of 6 in a row going into the 1910s, won a few more cups leading up to the outbreak of the First World War. So 1911 beat Hamilton 2-0. Following year 2-0 against Clyde. And then 1914 against Hibs 4-1, and you just look at the names in that team, in that great 6 in a row team: Patsy Gallagher, Jimmy McMenemy, Ali McNair. These are guys we've spoke about on the podcast, just proper legends of the club.
Guys like McMenemy, gave his whole career to Celtic, and was effectively manager in the 30s as well. So it's
Yeah, that's right.
And the cups are so important because they're going towards, fingers crossed, another one tomorrow.
That's it,
They all count.
They all count. I know you're right. They're numbers, but 1 through 9 or something there. So yeah,
so important for us.
40 tomorrow. Okay, so leave the history ones for a moment. I'll throw in the second nomination, and I'm going to nominate 2001, the 2000-2001 season, which is probably my favourite season.
yeah, I love
in terms
it.
of Celtic history.
The sun's shone every single day that season.
I was 18, 19 years old. Yeah, what's not to love?
It's a
just
great
everything
period.
like that.
When you're 18, 19, you've got a great Celtic team to support as
Yep.
well, because like, it just makes all the difference.
After years of not having a great one,
Yeah.
it was
Well,
nice.
exactly, yeah, because you grew up in the 90s, and so we'll get to the 90s at some point. There's not a lot of success there, but yeah. So Martin O'Neill coming in, Barry, you talked about 2016 to 2017, and I guess just taking it from that kind of low moment. We'd lost the league by 20 odd points the year
21
before.
points. Aye.
Yeah, and then Martin O'Neill comes in, obviously turns it around. So I'm not sure anything will surpass that for me. If you look at the team we had, guys, Henrik Larsson, obviously, Lambert, Sutton, Moravchik, Lennon, Thompson.
I mean, they're all top quality European players.
And defenders, I mean, we had real defenders back then. Mjalby, Valharen, Raman Vega.
Raman Vega. I'm not sure I would class Raman Vega as a top quality defender. He was good for 6 months.
He's such a style.
Aye. But just big, rock solid guys
And then
at
you
the back.
get guys like Boyd as well, so experienced.
Yeah. That's it. Well, that's it. We had Alan Stubbs and Tom Boyd in the bench that day. I think
Stubbs hardly played
that's-
that season.
Yeah, so it's real, I guess, quality all over the park. But yeah, I mean, we'd won the league at a canter. Some great games along the way as well, no less the 6-2 game. The cry was no defenders, that one. Brilliant, had a great t-shirt. And we're going for our first treble since Jock Stein and I guess the Lisbon Lions team, but 1969. In truth, it's probably never really in doubt. We're...
You say that, but you never know. It's a one-off cup game, isn't
That's a
it?
cliche, isn't
Yeah.
it? But it's right, we've been there before, games would be fine. But I know what you mean. Our confidence was so high that day.
Yeah.
The team was so good that...
And we get, so McNamara obviously gets the first goal. It actually didn't start, it came on for Moravchik.
I remember. I remember my main recollection of that game is actually being in the pub, which I probably shouldn't say, but being in the pub, absolutely rammed full of people. Chairs everywhere, big screen. And McNamara, I remember seeing the ball going through to him, and I stood up on a seat. And I blocked the view for about 30 people in the pub. So they all missed the opening goal. I felt really bad about that after it. But it was
This is your opportunity to apologise if anyone
apologise for nothing.
Because remember McNamara as well scored a double a couple of weeks earlier at Easter Road as well.
Did it 5-2.
I
beat
had
Hibs,
a bit of form as goal scoring.
Yeah, and vaguely, I remember the Hibs manager at the time saying, they'd kind of planned to contend with Moravchik. They knew we were going to play Moravchik, and then when he went off and we brought McNamara on, it just becomes a totally different game. So
totally different players doing different things, isn't it? Yeah.
So McNamara gets the first goal, and then second half a double from Henrik, 3-0, and pretty comprehensive victory. I think,
Brilliant
in the end.
celebration, like you were saying, with being 18, 19, it felt like you were out, a semi-final or a final almost every week at that point, and you could go out and celebrate. It's like you say, it was just such a great period, growing up.
Yeah, I actually phoned in. So I think we worked together. At that
We
point.
did work together. Yeah, you phoned in sick. I didn't have the guts to phone in sick, so I got your friend to do it for me and pretend she was my mum. And then turned up at work the next day, and we were like, so sick with you, Barry? Aye. I'm over it now though. It's all right. It's fine. Up all night,
Yeah. Yeah, phoned in sick for the pub toilet. There was bedlam going on outside. I think that was possibly the first day I experienced a huddle in the street as well, stopping traffic for a huddle. And I've done huddles all over the world now, but I think that was the first one. So, very good times.
Good memories.
Yep. Okay, so we'll move on. Our next successes, I guess, in the Inter-War years. It's not as glorious a period for Celtic. Picking up after World War One. Next success comes 1923. Beat Hibs 1-0, and then a couple of years later we're back 2-1 against Dundee. It's one of the most legendary moments in our history, which we'll hear about a little later.
Look forward to it.
Yep. Also, interesting note, that was our 11th success, and so that at that point we overtake Queen's Park, and from then on we are the most successful club in the Scottish Cup. So almost 100 years on, we've been the most successful
I
team.
think Queen's Park are still sore about it.
Probably. Yeah. they never really recovered from that.
You don't hear much about it.
Yeah, a few years later, 1927, 3-1 v East Fife. East Fife in a Scottish Cup final. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it?
You see that a lot in the early days though, like you say, wins against Clyde and
Clyde.
Hamilton and so forth.
Yeah, 80-odd thousand people at the game as well. Celtic East Fife.
Celtic lost a Scottish Cup tie to Athley one time.
Yeah, that's I remember you bringing that up. Yeah, so moving into the 30s now, 1931, 4-2 against Motherwell. And we've spoken about this earlier in our series too, but there's a great team photo of that day with the Scottish Cup, and it's got guys like Jimmy McGrory, John Thompson, Peter Scarf, Chick Geatons, Willie Maley of course is in there. It's a really iconic image, all these guys together and winning the cup. And
such with sadness as well though, one of the guys like Thompson and Peter Scarf died at really young ages.
Yeah, just in the coming years, that was the kind of last, I guess, that team was together. Obviously it's the following season, I guess, tragedy with John Thompson. So a few years later, another final, 1-0 against Motherwell, and then 1937 we beat Aberdeen 2-1, and does anybody know why that game's particularly significant?
Record attendance?
It is. It's a European record, so not only a Scottish or a British record. It's the largest crowd ever for a European football match. 147,000 people.
I mean, it's hard to get your head around that, isn't it?
That's just insane. I know you.
I mean, we come from near Glasgow, and you see where Hampden is. I mean, it's quite a small stadium now, relatively speaking. But trying to imagine, almost 150,000 people in that space, it's just.
That's wonderful.
Can you imagine the queues for the ties at half time? Most of the game.
I know, tragic. But yeah, happily we won it. I mean, it would be a pretty sour note if we'd lost that game.
Interestingly, it's not Celtic related, but I mean, some of the attendances at that period are just. I mean, even when Celtic aren't involved, I was looking at a final. It's a bit later on. I think it's actually in the late 50s or early 60s, and there's a final between Motherwell and Dundee, and 130,000 people turned up for it. And I'm trying to get my head round. There's not 130,000 people in Motherwell.
Who are these people?
Who goes to the game? Is it just the day out? We just go to the Scottish Cup final regardless of who's playing?
Maybe, yeah. And well, good on them. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a period. There's about 30-40 year period where there was over 100,000 folk at Hampden finals, or 90-100,000 folk, and it's kind of glory days of Scottish football almost. Okay, so that kind of takes us up to the Second World War then. So we'll pause there for a moment and get our third nomination. Mark, coming to you.
Thanks, Jerry. So my nomination is for the 95 Scottish Cup final. This is a game where we beat Airdrie 1-0. Big Pierre scores in the 9th minute.
It's a classic.
It is.
It's not a football classic.
No, it's a classic Pierre goal. Big ball in the box.
It's a great Tosh McKinley, isn't it?
Yeah.
40 yards.
I love the goal itself. It's great. The cross and the header are brilliant, but just been generally. I watched the full game recently, and there's barely two passes put together.
I think it was a high pressure game because you think November previous year, we lose the cup final to Wraith Rovers. I'm sure that was in players' back of their minds. Airdrie, no harm to them, weren't renowned for their style of football. I mean, I think what they call it agricultural style would be maybe a compliment to refer to that Airdrie team. I think was it 100 yellow cards they got? And I think
they were brutal. Yeah, I mean, let's be honest.
So it was a huge final because it's the first trophy after the takeover in '94. We've had 6 years without a trophy, which is just incredible. And Celtic, I know we went periods longer than that without it, but in a modern sense, that's a long time.
In your formative years as a Celtic fan, it's an eternity.
Yeah, for us, I mean, it was pretty much our childhood was watching Celtic get beat.
And I remember feeling quite confident that game, and my dad reminded me, let's just wait and see.
Yep.
And you can see how much the game meant. You think at full time, you've got Peter Grant and Paul McStay in tears.
Yeah.
Those iconic images from the game.
Tommy Burns as well.
Yeah, it just for anyone you wanted to be Tommy Burns to win that final. And I think there's a quote from Pierre saying that he didn't know how much it meant to him until he saw the emotion on the pitch. I think it was a relief, wasn't it? We got our first trophy, and it took us forward.
It was huge. I mean, and I remember when we've been back. That was the year at Hampden, but we went back to Celtic Park the following season. I mean, and there was been the share issue and so forth. But Celtic basically sold out their season tickets for the part of the stadium that they had built. Yeah. I remember my dad tried to get season tickets, and we'd never had one before at that point, and we couldn't get them. The first game back after that was a friendly against Newcastle. Rod Stewart was there, and we were showing off the Scottish Cup, and it was a glorious day. And just that whole feeling again just got it done.
There was an advert that Celtic took out in the media, and it said, "This is the beginning."
Yep.
That sense that, to think that, that great Lennon quote in 2011, that idea, this is the beginning of something good.
Yep.
And it kind of feels as if it's a birth of modern Celtic. At that point, 95, we went through our difficult period in the 90s. We're going back to where we belong. And actually, it was a really nice wee touch, because Packy Bonner, although he didn't play that game, was actually Jockstein's last ever signing at Celtic. So Jockstein's last ever signing is still involved in. So you get that nice wee bridge between the glory years and what we're going to then look forward to further success.
I'd put a wee shout out to Peter Grant as well, because he played that whole game injured. He needed like stitches from his leg after.
Just shows you just came out, isn't it?
Yeah. That guy just bled Celtic.
That day he literally did play Celtic.
And you think between the 89-95 didn't win anything, but the following 6 years in from 95, after the club gets back on its feet, 7 trophies, including the one you. So it just shows you how that period we're starting to get more success. We've got the Glory Boys in there as well, 97, 98. And just to sort of finish, there's a great story about Gordon Marshall, who perhaps wasn't our greatest ever keeper.
He would be. I'd have him in goals tomorrow.
I was like, Gordon Marshall, there was a great story about him that at full time he had a winners medal, and Brian O'Neill hadn't been able to play because he'd been injured, and he was quite emotional about it. And Gordon Marshall gave him his winners medal. So fair play to Gordon Marshall. I think that's a story.
That's nice.
I've got to say, Gordon Marshall must be a fair age now, though. I'm not sure I'd pick him now.
No, stick with Connor.
But I think it just shows it's a great memory, because it's Tommy Burns with the trophy, and it just feels for us, maybe our generation, this was the start of something good for us.
Well, it is, and you're right. I think 25 years since then. You're right, Barry. You think you said this a few weeks ago. We have been the dominant force in Scottish football over the last 25 years. Obviously, there's been some ups and downs in there, but you're right. That is the start of.
If you were to think about it, it feels like a kind of year zero type moment. That this is we were back, to where we should be.
Excellent. Okay, cheers, Mark. Okay, so moving on from Second World War, then this is a kind of less than successful period in our history, the post World War II years.
I think we were rank rotten.
I think that's a technical term. We did win in 1951, another final v Motherwell, curiously, so 1-0 against Motherwell. 1954, there's still, I guess, a couple of cup successes in there. 2-1 against Aberdeen. Jockstein captain that day, so that's obviously his.
Sean Fallon goal.
That's right, Sean Fallon, Willie Fairman. Yeah, these are great. You're right, just great names, great Celtic men. That was 1954. We actually didn't win another Scottish Cup for 11 years, 1965. But I think it would be remiss of us not to mention another cup final in those intervening years, which is the 1957 League Cup final.
Yeah, but
it's one of our finest ever moments.
Yeah,
I mean, like you say, it's a long spell, 11 years not to win the Scottish Cup, and they did make quite a few finals in between then, just to go over the line. But would you swap it for that one League Cup final?
I guess that's what I'm getting at. So, a cup final against Rangers it is always a big occasion, and winning a cup final against Rangers is just such a sweet moment. But 7-1 in a cup final against Rangers,
I just can't believe it. You talk about period. It's a shame you guys like Charlie Tully and you're really mocking like these legendary players who maybe didn't play in the most successful era, but
their medal collections aren't great.
Yeah, but they've still got that. They've got those cups, which is lovely. They're still part of our success, which is great.
They all count to it. Yeah, of course. But yeah, so then, as I say, you're right. We lost a few finals in the early 60s. So I guess it could have. We were making finals.
Yeah. You've got the 61 final, for instance, that Jockstein was the manager of Dunfermline.
Yep.
And obviously Jockstein was a football genius as a manager, so there's maybe no shame in losing that particular game. But they were still getting there; they just couldn't get over the line. Same again, 63.
Yep. And we were finishing like mid-table as well around this time as well. It's kind of 7th, 8th.
Yeah,
it's an odd period. Yeah, but then, as I say, 1965, everything kind of changes, and I know we'll probably come on to talk about this in a moment as well, but very much the start of an era. The Lisbon Lions, Jockstein coming in that season, we win the 65 Cup. A couple of years later, we all know what happened. 1967, the only Scottish Cup which forms part of a quadruple, beating Aberdeen 2-0 to obviously round off being European champions, League winners, League Cup winners as well.
It's not bad, is it?
Yeah, it's a good season. It's up there. And then closing out the decade, another treble actually, 1969, 4-0 against Rangers.
I watched the footage of that game recently as well. It's some hiding.
That 4-0 in a cup final. 7-1 obviously is one thing, but even 4-0 in a cup final against Rangers, that's a it's a great win, especially because, Scottish Cup going for the treble.
And they're all great goals. I think George Conley got a goal that day. It's just going down the keeper. And to beat Rangers in the final, tops it off. They're just a magnificent football team. There's no other way to put it. It
is, yeah. It's right at the height of that team, obviously Jimmy Johnson and stuff. So, that's our last final. That's our last treble until 2001, which I mentioned earlier. So that's that big.
It's usually special there. You think we're going for our fourth one tomorrow. It just shows you these things don't come along that often.
I know.
We're living in special times.
We've seen as many, in the last 3-4 years, as we did in the first 120-year history.
We missed out on quite a few.
Yeah. Okay, so move on. The next nomination I'm going to give you is actually 1988, and I debated between 88 or 89. There's a couple of great Scottish Cup wins at the end of the 80s, but I'm going to go for 88 because it's part of the centenary double. Now, there's this talk about Celtic being a fairy tale club, and I was there the night we beat Barcelona, the anniversary, the birth of the club and stuff like that. And it's moments like that are just so special.
Yeah.
And I think this probably qualifies for that as well, because
that definitely does.
We were underdogs that season in the league.
Yeah, you go back to the summer of '87, and they're spending a fortune.
Chock full of England internationals and stuff. The Sunez Revolution, spending heavily. We've lost a couple of stalwarts.
Big players.
Murdo McLeod, left. McLeod, so there's a bit of, I guess, turnover at us. So they're just throwing money about. But to win the league that season is magnificent in the centenary of the club, and then to follow it up, obviously playing Dundee United in the final. I think Dundee United, were they in the UEFA Cup final that year as well? Was it? I think
it was the year before. I think '87. I might be wrong with that.
I think it was '87.
They were in the UEFA Cup final.
They certainly they're a top team at that point.
Clearly, yeah. So that, and obviously they'd won the league a few years before as well. So a really great Dundee United team, and they actually go 1-0 up in the final. Kevin Gallagher.
Yep. Relation of Patsy Gallagher.
He is indeed. Yeah.
He should have skied it, really.
He obviously went on to have a great career in the Premier League down south and that as well, Scotland International. But they go 1-0 up, and then Frankie boy Macaveni gets a double. So obviously equalised, I think, was it 70 odd minutes, and then last minute winner. Scoring a last minute winner in a cup final.
When you're a boyhood Celtic fan, it's got to be quite special, isn't it, for the player?
And you've spoken about, there's this proper handing in the sun.
It is. That's my overriding memory of that day, and I don't remember. I was only 6 years old, so I'm not going to say I remember watching the game on TV, but I've got a vague recollection of the day itself, and just the glorious sunshine. And maybe I've just taken that from the TV, maybe I've just adopted that, but you see the pictures on the TV and it just looks like you're in Bermuda or something. It's like blue skies, there's not a cloud anywhere.
It's how you picture cup final, isn't it? Because normally we kind of rain.
Well, it's that open stand at Hampden as well. There's no roof at that point in the Celtic game, so it is so colourful and bright, and it's great. I must admit, I've often pretended I remember the 88 and 89 games. In truth, I don't think I do. I think the first one I actually remember watching is 1990.
I kind of remember 88 as an event because you had the centenary, and then you've got the Garden Festival as well in Glasgow.
I remember the Garden Festival and the big the flower crest of Celtic. Yeah, so I do remember that. So there's wee bits and pieces, I guess, in there, but I think it's maybe just clouded by watching footage of it.
A wee shout out to the semi-final that year as well, though. It's a cracking game against Hearts, and we're 1-0 down, scored twice in the last 2 minutes.
All right,
just to make the finals.
That was that team's thing, wasn't it? Never giving up. Lots of last minute winners.
Yep. Cool. So so that's the centenary double 88 in that cup final. There's my second nomination I'm going to throw in. Move it on. So into the 70s and 80s. We've again, this is some great moments in here. The 1971, obviously still part of the 9 in a row team, beat Rangers 2-1. 72, beat Hibs 6-1, and Dixie Dean's hat-trick.
And you watch the highlights of that, it's just a fantastic team, that late 60s, early 70s team.
Yeah, it really was. 74, 3-0 against Dundee United. 75, 3-1 against Airdrie.
It's almost a bit of a shame that we lost the 73 final to Rangers, because they won 5 in a row if it wasn't for that.
Well, we're actually in 7 finals in a row. In that period. It's a huge success. You'd always take that, I guess. 5 out of 7 getting to 7 finals. So it is a shame we couldn't have put, I guess, more successive ones in there, but that's quite prolonged period of success.
Yeah, well, nitpicking there a little bit to criticise.
Won 9 league titles and a European Cup back.
No,
And another European final.
That really sticks, doesn't it? That was.
Yeah, I think if I could pick anything, it would be the Feyenoord game in 1970. I'd want to change from that period. But yeah, so 1977, another Old Firm final, 1-0 against Rangers, and that's quite a defining moment as well. I think it's Kenny Dalglish's last game.
77, yeah. When you see the television pictures again, there's Jockstein and Ken Dalglish sort of congratulating each other at the final whistle, and you kind of just, obviously with hindsight, you're looking back and thinking that was the kind of last moment of success for the two of them. Yeah,
and I guess that it coincides with the start of the new firm, Aberdeen Dundee United. There's a lot of Aberdeen success around that period, late 70s, early 80s. The Alec Ferguson team, obviously. But we still, we still have our moments. In fact, 1980, which is another riot, another infamous one. But we
wasn't
won.
It their fault?
It was certainly wasn't. No, well, I won't get into that. But we beat Rangers 1-0. But the game is obviously famous or infamous for the riot which followed.
My dad was at that game, and he said he stayed until like the final whistle after extra time, and he said he could sense that something was happening. So he just got himself out there sharpish like that. So he did see Celtic win it, but he just like basically said, I'm not hanging around for this because something's going to kick off here.
It's kind of weird to pin, because I mean there'd been several Old Firm finals, say obviously 77, even early 70s as well, and you wonder something brewing that day, who knows. But it's a kind of curious moment, and it's obviously the reason we can't get a pint at that game anymore.
40 years later.
Yeah, there's some great. I won't ridicule myself with an Archie Macpherson impression, but
I think you should do it.
His commentary on the riot is just brilliant. Talking about another wave now comes. Not that I'm advocating rioting in football, but it's I
don't think Archie Macpherson expected to get up that morning and commentate on like police battery charges and things.
No, I know. It's but yeah, it's certainly worth watching as a interesting point in Scottish football history. 1985, so that's our next success. We did lose a couple of finals early 80s. To say that Aberdeen team, Aberdeen actually won 3 in a row under Fergie, and a couple of doubles in there. So
the 84 final we lost, but they equalised when we had 10 men, so they put in a decent effort. And who was it that get sent off that day? Is it Aiken? I think it was Roy Aiken. Never a sending off. Still not happy.
I seem to remember you talking about this one before.
It's not a sending off.
Aye. Yeah.
Anyway.
We talked about Aiken way back at episode 8, a long time ago. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. I remember you going on about that.
Gordon Strachan was the one trying to get him sent off as well.
What happened to him?
That's right. I remember that kind of knitted together. There's a lot of fans hadn't really forgiven him for that. Yeah. But 1985, a real iconic moment from Davy Provan, the free kick 2-1 against Dundee United. Actually, I think that's the day as well that there's that's the day the protest about the poll tax. Is that day?
No, I think
that's the 88 one, isn't it? That's 88.
Martin Thatcher was
that's Dundee United as well, because the Celtic and Dundee United fans with the red cards.
Mick McCarthy refused to shake hands with him.
Yeah, just singing where you can stick your poll tax and stuff. Yeah, so good moments. But 88, as I spoke about, and 89 as well, which I mentioned. I could have picked 88 or 89.
89's the first proper final I remember. Yeah. I remember with a TV set in the garden with my next door neighbour. Watched that outside.
There'll be a lot of that tomorrow. But yeah, 1-0 against Rangers. Nice, always nice to win an Old Firm final.
Yeah, and that goal as well is the fact that it never should have stood as well. I mean, it's going for a throw, and it's clearly a Rangers throw.
That's right.
Probably can just takes it anyway. The ref's just like, just play on.
Yeah. Okay, so that kind of rounds off the 80s. I guess bringing us up to that 95 moment you talked about, Mark. I think we're going to have a next nomination from you, Barry.
Yeah, well, we're going back in time to a final that you've already mentioned. So I just want to touch upon the 1965 final again. So,
and you've got the programme from that day?
Well, I've actually got the programme, the actual official match day programme from 1965 that my fiancée kindly bought me a few years ago. So this is framed in my house, but I brought it along with me today just to highlight a couple of things.
Yeah, you've been talking about this for a while, and I've been curious to get a look at it.
No, we'll come to it. But I mean, the 65 final, as you said, Celtic hadn't won the Scottish Cup for 11 years at that point, which it's just such a long period of time. We were talking about the Barron years before, 6 years between 89 and 95, but to go from 54 to 65 and only really have a couple of League Cup successes, albeit one was glorious, isn't it enough, you know? And it must have been a really difficult time for a lot of the fans. And in 65, the Celtic board finally make a decent decision to bring in Jock Stein. More than a decent decision, I mean, the decision that's changed the club.
Yeah.
I mean, our league form that year was terrible. We ultimately finished 8th in the league. I mean, 8th in the league. Can you get your head around that as well? But, I mean, Celtic had been in a few cup finals before that, we'd mentioned, 61, 63. But they'd never been able to get over the line. And it was so important for Billy McNeil, probably more than anybody else, as the captain of the club, to finally get that first trophy, because he'd been there for a few years. And to actually have some success.
Yep.
And that changed everything. I mean, first and foremost, the game's an absolute belter. I mean, it's a 3-2 game. Celtic come from behind twice. Bertie Auld, grabbing 2 goals. And then McNeil himself grabbing the winner towards the end. Cracking the header.
Yeah, it's a great moment.
And from that point on, I mean, Celtic just do not look back. I mean, you consider we're finishing 8th in the league in 1965 and we're European champions within 2 years.
Yep.
I can't imagine anybody's ever done that
It's
before.
incredible. I mean, you talk about a fairy tale, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
imagine 65 thinking 2 years' time the guy just scored that winning goal is going to be lifting the European Cup.
Yeah, it's actually something. It's like when you're playing Champman and you take over a team who are mid-table but still in the cup, and you win the cup. Next year you win the league, and then next year you win the Champions League. but that actually
exactly
happens.
what it is.
It's pretty much the same players. We're struggling earlier on. Just how good Stein was.
Yeah. I mean, that team that lined up in 65, I think 7 of the 10 outfield players, played in Lisbon. So there's only a couple of differences, and the other ones are like, Yogi Hughes, who was basically a Lisbon Lion as well, Charlie Gallagher, who's really a Lisbon Lion. So I mean, it's really the same team almost. So a cracking game, and just pivotal in terms of Celtic actually becoming reborn and actually becoming successful. But the reason I brought in the programme was just to point out a couple of things. So
I love these old adverts and stuff in the programmes. So cigarettes and stuff.
In the inside page, you've got a part on the referee. There's a good few hundred words on the referee. I don't know if anybody's... Who's doing the refereeing tomorrow? Is it... Anyway,
I'm not sure.
Say, for instance, it's Willie Collum. Would you be interested in reading 500 words on Willie Collum before the game? No, of course not. It's ridiculous. And then further on, it goes on to list an itinerary of the actual Scottish Cup final day itself. So if you're at the Scottish Cup final in 1965, you want to get in at least an hour and a half before the game. It's none of this turning up 30 seconds before the opening whistle just to try and grab the huddle. So event number 1, 1:45 to 2 PM, the band of the Scots Guards doing their first performance for their pipes and drums. Event number 2, you've got an invitation mile between at 2 o'clock, invitation mile race under the SAA rules. So I don't know what that is. So it's Scottish athletics or something.
Is that like a 3-legged mile or something? How do you have rules for running a mile?
It's an invitation, so presumably these are proper athletes. Just thought we'll just have a wee race around the park before the game. Event number 3, you've got a cycle race from the Deal Take the Hindmost by 8 riders of the Scottish Cycling Union. So I guess this must have been round the running track for a while. Yeah. Event number 4, gymnastics display and pushball match by the Scottish Amateur Gymnastics Association.
Can I just say I'd still be in the pub.
Well, you seem actually know what to see the gymnastics. And then event number 5, 2:30, you've got the schools relay race. So this is a boys medley relay race from the pupils of St Patrick's High School, which I'm guessing is probably the one in Coatbridge, and then Lindsay Academy, Kingswood Secondary School and Ayr Academy. And then that's followed by the girls 4x110 yards relay race. And then you've got a further performance by the Scots Guards, so you've got more pipes and drums. And then event number 7, the teams come on, and then you've got the national anthem being played, which I presume was probably God Save the Queen at that point.
For Scotland wasn't a thing at that point.
So I don't know, that wouldn't go down well. In these days, I wouldn't have thought. It's not been done for a while. So.
Do you think anyone went just to watch the pipe bands and left for the game?
Maybe that's what all those thousands of people...
It was just there for the race.
That's the race over still, guys. I don't know who we going.
But I don't know, maybe we should bring these things back for the Scottish
I've said that to you, wasn't it? I mean, it seems to be Scottish Cup final day was an iconic moment in Scottish football calendar that they entertain people, very much of its time, but maybe they could do that again, make it a big event.
Yeah. No, okay, no, cheers for that, Barry. I do want a proper look at that as well, of old adverts and stuff, like Punch magazines and stuff.
There's like cigarettes and alcohol adverts, which you don't see very much of.
Join the army. You know?
Join the army, that's in there.
I've seen really old media from the 30s and 40s, and like the equivalent of a hotline, you'd send a letter in. They used to go out people's addresses, like Mr. Smith, there's such and such road, Glasgow. You have to do, like, you can't do that now.
No, I know. You can just hide behind a Twitter handle these days.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Cheers for that, Barry. So, into the 90s, which, let's be honest, is not the greatest period. I feel like I've said that a couple of times already, but we only, one Scottish Cup in the whole decade is pretty poor. I think
I went to the final in '99 against Rangers. That was a horrible day out.
Yeah, it wasn't brilliant, was it? But all changes, as I mentioned earlier on, 2001 Martin O'Neill, or 2000 Martin O'Neill coming in, winning in 2001. Martin O'Neill did add another two, so 2004 beat Dunfermline 3-1, and then 2005 1-0 against Dundee United. I think that 2004 game, that was Larsson's last game. It was a real
Larsson
sad.
was brilliant that day, 2 brilliant goals, just a world class player.
Yeah, we did a Henrik Larsson special actually a few months ago now, so you'll still be able to get that if you look back for it. We picked out our 10 favourite Henrik moments. I think that's
quite hard to do as well. That's the thing. I've not made it. That was in the top 10, but it was hard to get 10.
You're right, because there's just so many.
He's like a top 100.
Amazing. I know. Might need to do a second version of that, I think. But yeah, so that Larsson's last game, obviously, great memories there. The following year as well, the 2005 one.
Let's just skip over this. We won the Scottish Cup.
Well, I kind of want to touch on it because we knew Martin O'Neill was leaving, and obviously we just lost the league, Helicopter Sunday, Scott McDonald and all that, which is terrible.
Scott McDonald, give him his due. He helped it out later on.
I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen the 2005 Scottish Cup final.
No?
Like, I didn't see it live because I was in Australia, so it was on at a different time, but I don't think I've ever seen the goal that won it. It's just something that I'm aware of that it happened.
Alan Thompson, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Alan Thompson?
it was great for O'Neill to sign off with a trophy. I mean,
Yeah.
despite what happened the previous year, it was heartbreaking. But it was amazing that O'Neill got a proper farewell from the fans with success.
Yeah, I think so. And that obviously brings the curtain down on the O'Neill era, then into Gordon Strachan, 2007, the 1-0 against Dunfermline. Do you know who scored that day?
Doomby, wasn't it?
John Joel Perry Doomby, yeah, it's one of these real oddities. And
It's a cloud one, isn't it?
yeah, winning goal, 2007 Cup final. It was only about, it was 5 minutes to go or something.
It was a derby game. It was a terrible game of football.
And then our next one's not till 2011. So you mentioned Lennon's words of this is only the beginning. It's actually a real poignant moment for me, that one. So my younger brother had actually recently been diagnosed with cancer. Happy to say he's made a full recovery, but I remember I was with my dad and my brothers watching that game. It was just an awful day at Hampden.
It was just chucked it down.
Yeah, raining terribly, but yeah, it was a kind of nice moment, I guess, for the family being together and obviously winning. And see Lennon's words after the game were pretty rousing and stirring. You just felt like were better times.
Magnificent goal from Keesing Young. That's my main
it
memory of it.
was, yeah.
And it did feel like the beginning of something, to be fair, because we only just narrowly missed out in the league that year.
It's disappointing, that league, wasn't
it? But it was good to get the Scottish Cup because it kicked us on the next. Well, we won the league the next year, albeit there was some strange circumstances surrounding it. But
we would have won it anyway. We
Probably.
were comfortably ahead, I think so. But that's obviously the start of the current 9 in a row. Okay, and then obviously Lennon added another one in a couple of years later, 3-0. Hibs, double by Gary Hooper, another pretty comprehensive.
that was a great day. I love that.
It was. Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? 2013.
It's one of those cup finals where you score early and you just enjoy the rest of the game.
Well, remember it was a Sunday, annoyingly. You couldn't really overdo it because they worked next morning.
I did overdo it.
Speak for yourself.
There's a common theme here.
Cool. Okay, so I guess that takes us up to almost modern days. Mark, do you want to fill in anything? You've got another nomination for us?
Yeah, so I'm going back into the distant mists of Celtic history. So this is a Scottish Cup final 1925, which is known as the Patsy Gallagher final. So it was played in April, 11th April 1925, playing Dundee. And it's part of Celtic folklore, this game, because of a goal that's scored by Patsy Gallagher. So Dundee taking the lead.
Yep.
And Patsy Gallagher was 34 years old at this point, one of the elder statesmen of the team.
He was already a Celtic legend at this point.
Yeah.
He was a superstar. He was more or less.
Yeah.
He was known all over the world.
So we're looking for a goal, and Gallagher does his magic. He's known as the Mighty Atom. Gets the ball, dribbles into the box, and he goes down, and everyone's thinking, "Oh, good effort!" But takes the ball between his legs, does a somersault into the Dundee goal to make it. And sadly, there's no footage. All we've got left are like some cartoon drawings at the time.
There's some great illustrations of it, like, and I've seen a kind of animated one as well.
Step by step. I don't know if you remember Carlton Cole tried a similar goal. Didn't quite pay off. It was the same idea.
That's not how I imagined the Gallagher one, I must say. I've tried a lot of crazy things in my time at fives, but I've never tried anything like that. Like somersaulting into the goal.
In my head, I've got it that it's like a proper gymnastics somersault, where there's like a pure triple twist and like flies into the net. It's probably. I'm pleased that there is no footage of these things, because you want it just imagined in your head how you want it to be. You know,
this mythical goal.
It must be amazing for the people there and saw that goal, and then Celtic went to win 2-1. Jimmy McGrory scores one of his rare goals in that game.
Really pleased with that.
But I mean, he said Patsy Gallagher was a legend by that point. That was his fourth Scottish Cup medal. He won his first one in 1911.
Yeah.
And you know, he's one of these guys that are still talked about. You know, we love skillful attacking players at Celtic. You know, they play the Celtic way. It's a great story when Patsy Gallagher made his debut in 1911. Jimmy Quinn had said to Willie May, like, that's going to be manslaughter if you let him play, because he was so small, and we know the football back then was a bit more robust and rugged. So I was doing a bit of research. Patsy Gallagher was 5'7", so equivalent to Sean Maloney's 5'7". I think gives you a rough idea how.
5'7".
Yeah.
I thought I had more than an inch on Sean Maloney.
Whereas Brian McLaughlin was 5'4".
He was a big guy.
He was one of our smaller players. So I think
Brian McLaughlin used to run around with a curtain, basically. So it wasn't like a football jersey.
Wear the hoop.
But Patsy Gallagher, so I think in those days, when 5'7", it's not exactly small, but I think when you're playing that type of football, you know, the muddy pitches, the big boots, to be a skillful player nowadays was incredible. So sadly, we don't have an awful lot of footage from that game. In fact, we've got no footage from that game. We've got this kind of pathy style, you know, news reports.
Yeah, it's funny when you look back at that kind of era, because there's a couple of things which have survived. There's like Glasgow Cup finals, which there's footage of. Because I think there's very few of Jimmy McGrory's 500 odd goals that are actually caught on film. In some sense, it's disappointing, but on the other hand, well, maybe it adds to the
footage you do have
for
from
these
those sort of
guys.
periods, because it's the quality of it and the frame rate, it kind of feels like it's come from another world almost. It doesn't feel, it's hard to recognise it as proper football.
There's a good still image of, I think, Patsy Gallagher during a game when he's basically got kind of one leg thrown over his shoulder to try and hit the ball. So I think that just gives an indication of, you know, just how skillful he was.
Yep.
And how we touched on earlier, these guys are legends, and because of their success and because of their hard work, we can still celebrate, you know, the fact that we're adding trophy after trophy. So, and you think outside Park Kids, you've got that lovely big banner goes around. You know, that is the story of the club, you know, the story of our success.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Mark. Thanks for that. Okay, so we'll just kind of round off now. Just a couple more to go. We've got and I guess it's the last 3 years, and obviously the huge success we've had over this recent period. Barry, you took us through the 2017 game. Lovely. A fantastic moment.
Let's start again. I'll start crying again.
The following year, 2018, 2-0 against Motherwell. I was actually in Dublin for my brother's stag do. Remember watching it in a bar in Temple Bar, the Badass Cafe. Big celebration, big huddle in Temple Bar afterwards.
I mean, that was proper history. Myself and Mark went down to the stadium for the top bus
Tom,
that day, and it was just pandemonium, wasn't it?
Yeah, only way you can describe it, pandemonium. I mean, it was... I remember just running after a bus. I thought, I go in Manchester after double
They got up to Celtic Park, and then there were smoke bombs going off, and the people were crowding the road, and then they were trying to go up the Celtic way, and nobody really knew what was happening. And then there was like a wee presentation at the top just outside the stadium, but we didn't even know what was going on because you couldn't hear anything.
I just felt...
I've watched footage of it, It's just... Because at that point, I think a double treble, it had never been done before. Look where we are now, it's unbelievable. But last year, which seems so long ago in so many different ways.
It doesn't seem like an eternity.
But 2-1 against Hearts and an Eddie double. The second, just an absolute peach.
It was quite nervous because they took the lead. But obviously we got that penalty straight away to get back in terms.
I'm sure we'd take the same again tomorrow.
I don't know, I hate going behind in the cup final.
Hopefully, ideally we would just have one of the Hibs ones I was talking about. We'll just go early, win 3-0, that'll do.
I'll take that.
But anything at all like that tomorrow we'll take, and if Eddie can get another couple of goals, good to maybe kick on.
To Lennon boys tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hard couple of weeks, but...
It has been a tough couple of weeks, but we've had such a prolonged period of success, particularly in the cups. It's very difficult to criticise getting knocked out of the League Cup when you've won 37.
It had to at some point, so I'm just thankful that we've had this period of success.
When you look at this 37 cup wins in a row, Ross County, St Johnstone, teams like this are your bang average Scottish football sides. If you played Ross County 37 times in a row, of course you're going to get beat once. It was always going to come to an end. I think compounded with, Europe's not been great this season. We had our bad luck somewhat with some of the COVID stuff as well, but hopefully I'm not giving up on anything yet. So we'll wait and see where it goes. Okay, so that I guess rounds off our history in the Scottish Cup. I think we're going to we normally end on a vote, so we normally each kind of propose, well, what's our favourite moment, and then we'll have a wee round table vote. So Mark, do you want to, what's the one you're putting forward then?
Okay, well, I know I can't vote for myself, not that I would have done anyway, but I think 65 is so important. Jockstein's first trophy, and just the period that comes from that is just incredible.
Okay, cheers Mark. Barry?
For me, it's difficult. There's some great memories in there, and ones that I was, personally at, and then ones from way back. The 95 Cup final holds a special place in my heart, simply because it's probably an age thing more than anything else. It's because we had those barren years, because we were so young at the time, and we hadn't seen Celtic win anything really. And also the circumstances of Fergus McCann coming into the club, and the club, being run properly for a change, and buying players.
Yep.
I think 95, and for our guys of our generation, is probably the most important one, because I don't think the cup finals in 2001 actually happen unless we win something, in that mid-90s period.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it. So I'll kind of pick that as my favourite Scottish Cup moment, albeit the game itself is awful, and I wouldn't advise anybody to watch it again.
Just watch the celebrations afterwards. So obviously when we do this, the rule tends to be you can't vote for your own one. So I think I'm going to side with you both, I guess, with you, Barry, just there, Mark, your nomination of 95.
Cheers, Barry.
For largely the same reasons. I think it's very much the rebirth of modern Celtic, and it's the first one I really remember sitting, I watched the whole game and just getting properly into it and celebrating. When you see Tommy Burns, Paul McStay, Peter Grant afterwards in tears, and just how much it means to these kind of guys, everything about it is fantastic. And you're right, since then it's like a marker that for the next 25 years.
I remember watching Race Rovers, my grandfather, and I don't know where I get my nerves from, seeing him, and then he passed away unfortunately in April 95. So it's kind of special. That's really special. That cup final, I felt as if, and it was just that's what I love about Celtic, is that we have a disagreements, but we're all a big family. And we've got so many special moments. And today, raising money for charity. It's, we're a big group of people, the Celtic family.
It is, there's been a lot, and we've given you a wee episode today. We've covered a lot in our podcast, and there's just some great stories which you unearth going back over Celtic's history. And we've got a few more specials, a few more episodes we're going to be doing coming up, hopefully, talking about more of these kind of things. But that's, I guess, our Scottish Cup one today. And I'm glad we've got a consensus on. So we're saying 95 is.
I think a lot of people wouldn't agree with that, but it's very much for guys of our generation, and the way the club moved on from there. But that's why it's important. I mean, you could say 69 beating Rangers 4-0 was fantastic. The 2017 was brilliant, but they're just wins. Sometimes
significant.
The significance of what you actually achieve and what the club does after it sort of pushes up.
Okay, so I think we've got our conclusion then. Let us know if you think we're right or wrong. Obviously you can get in touch with us on Facebook or email celticaz@mail.com. I've really enjoyed that today. It's been good, and it's been great to be part of this wonderful weekend which Celtic State of Mind are putting together. I think we were approaching 12k on the GoFundMe, so I think we've maybe just about hit that. Obviously anything anyone can and give would be wonderful, and anyone who's already donated, thank you very much. Rock Talk as well, our sponsors, thank you very much for putting that up for
do some great
our session today. We certainly do. All very much into mental health charities, so I really enjoyed that. Thanks Mark, thanks Barry.
It was great fun.
Thanks everyone for listening as well. Enjoyed it.